All right, welcome to our very first live stream here at Speedy Spokes. Today's topic, we're going to be helping you decide, which beginner bike to get and walking you through what to look for and what not to look for when purchasing that very first bike. Now, when I purchased my first bike, I had done a bunch of research on a handful of the popular models at the time, Ninja 400 R3, and I was pretty set on getting those. So there was one day I just decided, you know what, today's the day. I'm gonna go get a bike no matter what it takes. So I went to the dealership. It ended up not working out for the Ninja 400. Instead of waiting and being patient, I went to the next dealership closest and just walked out with a CF Moto 300 SS, which it was a fine beginner bike, but you definitely don't want to make, an impulse decision like that. Do better. That's what I'm going to help you do, kind of walk you through what to look for when picking out your very first bike. Now, starting off with the CC mountage, that is something that, I think most people should start out on a 3 to 500 CC bike. A lot of people will tell you start on a 650, don't waste your money. Start on a 600, don't waste your money. Here's the thing though, when you're learning, there's so much you have to remember. There's so much you have to do. It's not like a car where you just press a pedal and go. There's a lot going on that you have to get used to, and I don't think throwing speed and power into the equation is a good idea. There is a handful of people out there that, might be fine on a 650 or a 600 starting out. They're a little bit more disciplined as far as the throttle goes. Most of us aren't like that. We're going to get that bike, we're going to learn to ride it, and we're going to get overconfident within, a couple months. So definitely I would recommend sticking in the lower CC class for the most part. That's what I did. Like I said, 300 SS was my first bike, and I got to tell you, I am very happy with that decision. If I would have started on a bigger bike, I can't say for sure if I'd be here still. So definitely start on a smaller bike because you're probably going to get overconfident. All right, now the next thing is going to be brands. Now, this is something that really doesn't matter as much as you think when it comes to the beginner bikes. Most of these beginner bikes are going to be your basic, everyday, flat plane, parallel twins. And most of the Japanese brands, Honda, Kawasaki, Yamaha are all going to be super reliable. And the bikes are all really similar. Like, slight differences in power, but at the end of the day, all 400, 500cc class bikes are pretty much the same. So honestly, pick which one you like, which one looks the best, sounds the best, whatever you want to do there. Don't stress out about the brand too much because at the end of the day, they're all the same, except for, there's CF Moto, which I've heard good things about the 450 SS. The 300 SS, I've had no reliability issues with. I still have it. It's been a really good bike, but there's mixed opinions on the internet about those Chinese bikes, so maybe stick to one of the Japanese manufacturers if you can. But the cool thing about the CF Moto 450 SS is it's actually cross-plane, so it sounds more like an MT-07. It's a really good sounding bike, but I can't really speak to the reliability of that. There's KTM too. Same kind of thing. I've heard very mixed things. Some people love them and some people are just like, yeah, they have reliability issues. So I can't speak on that because I haven't had a KTM. But, at the end of the day, it is a beginner bike. For the most part, they all should be super reliable. Now, let's go ahead and look at a couple bikes here. All right. So let's just start with something basic. Let's say Ninja 500. And 400 would be fine as well, but 500 is kind of a popular model right now, so we'll start with that. Let's see. My feed is just a little messed up right now because I've been looking at a million bikes because it's winter time and I'm bored, but we won't talk about that. So one important thing with looking at motorcycles is going to be when you see a bike that has, a bunch of aftermarket aluminum anodized cheap crap, most of the time, or underglow too, can't forget that. Those two things are a pretty telltale sign that, a complete squid owned that bike and completely ragged on it. Another thing would be stickers all over the place. Like, it should be common sense, but if you don't know, those are the types of bikes to avoid. You just trust me. Like, it could be a really good deal, sure, but you don't know how that bike was taken care of, and those are pretty, like I said, telltale signs that it was not taken care of. So avoid bikes like that. Trust me, it's worth paying a little bit extra to get something that looks a little more OEM. I love, personally, when I'll see a bike that is completely OEM, but it has an aftermarket exhaust. That's perfect because I know I'm going to want an aftermarket exhaust eventually. So that's like the perfect combo, because when you do mods to your bike like that, they don't really equate to actual value for the most part. Some people think they do, but that's not true. So let's go ahead and go back to the bikes. Let's see here. Some people really like to think their bikes are worth what they paid for new. And that's just not true. This one's a fairly good deal. I'm trying to find one a little bit more affordable. Let's do this guy. This is a dealership. This really looks like a dealership. It looks like a Ninja. It literally is a Ninja, buddy. All right. Let's say that that's what I was talking about. All right. That would be something that, like, okay. So oh gosh, I didn't mean to do that. So the thing about these parts I was talking about is it's also like you don't know if they dropped that bike. This looks very OEM. So I think it's fine as far as those levers go. I think somebody was just trying to make it look cooler. It looks stupid to me. Looks like it got a scratch. But yeah, you can tell these are OEM fairings. So that would be a decent bike. Has an exhaust. But honestly, I don't want to deal with changing out grips and levers anyway. So we'll skip on that one. Let's see here. Now, for the most part, definitely stick with newer bikes. You kind of just want to, get a bike that works, it runs, it's not going to have any mechanical issues. Unless you're super mechanical, even then, I would say I'm pretty mechanically inclined-ish. So even then, I got a brand new bike just because it's a lot to learn at once. You're better off just getting something that works and not bothering with, say your chain breaks, or you just delay the process of learning. So just get something that works, get something newer, don't be too cheap. Motorcycling is not something that is super cheap in general. You might tell yourself, oh, I'm going to get a bike to save money on gas. Let me tell you, that's not the case. You're going to buy this bike, you're going to spend more on gas because you're going to ride it all the freaking time, which it's a blast. It's really fun, but you're going to spend more money on gas. You now have an insurance bill. You now have another vehicle that you got to do regular maintenance on. On top of that, you have all the gear you want to buy. And over time, that gear, you're going to want even newer gear or, nicer gear. So it's just, yeah, and not to mention, you're going to eventually sell that beginner bike. You're going to get a bigger bike. And on top of that, eventually you'll start wanting different motorcycles at the same time. Slowly, you just work yourself into a pit that there's no recovering from. So don't get into it if you don't have a lot of money, or at least some to spend. That's all I would say. All right, back to looking for bikes. Like this. This guy's not getting this. 62 is insane. That's too far away. I'm trying to find something realistic. Oh, this isn't bad. 2025, 1 year old, 5200 OEM levers. He lowered it, which I'm not a big fan of. It is the SE, I think, with the nicer screen. I don't know. Can take that sticker off. It looks like he did a tail tidy. Those can't be right. What the heck? Okay. Cheap exhaust on it. That's not the end of the world. Oh, no, it's a legit exhaust. Okay. Nice. Okay, this looks decent. I don't like whatever's going on with those turn signals, but yeah, this isn't bad. This could definitely be a decent bike. It's a little high in the price. 5,500's a bit. I'll see if we can find something cheaper, because that's a little crazy. I mean, for something you pay around 7 grand at a dealership for, it's not necessarily a bad deal, but I feel like like even this, I mean, that's kind of taking a chance. That's in Flint, so we'll get a shot if we go try to buy that. Here's another decent one. All right, here we go. All right, never mind. Nope, nope, nope. If you got this, this kid had no idea what he was doing. So, next. If you like the anniversary, that's low mileage, but it's also in the hood. Man, there is not a lot of cheap 500s right now. I thought there would be more than this. Let's look at Yamaha R3. Oh, all right. That's not bad. Let's see what this bike got going on. All right, it's gonna need a tail tidy. Plastics look OEM. Looks like it's in really good condition. He washed it, which is nice. Exhausted. It looks like he just quit riding, which is honestly ideal. 2,000 miles is nothing. General rule of thumb, I would say stick under 10,000 miles. These beginner bikes will last much longer than that, but if you plan on keeping it for a while, around 10,000 under is kind of a good mark to aim for. Now, this is probably like a 3-hour drive for me, which is fine. I'm fine driving a bit to get a good deal, which 4,300 for a 2023, that's a pretty solid deal. So, let's say I'm going through with this bike, there's no aftermarket crap. Everything looks OEM for the most part. Only thing that sucks is we are going to have to put a aftermarket exhaust on, and I'm pretty sure that's the OEM tire as well. I would assume so. So eventually it's going to need a new tire. It does need an OEM exhaust and tail tidy. $100 for the TST tail tidy. I forget if you can do a slip-on with the R3. I want to say you can, but I'm not sure. Say 500 to 1,000 for exhaust, but you'd be fine with exhaust as is, but we'll say 500 for slip-on. So need $600 in work. You're still looking at under $5,000 for just such a beautiful looking bike. I love the way the R3s look. So anyways, say that we're going to go ahead and we're going to buy this bike. Message the guy, set up a date to go look at the bike. Obviously, like with this one, there's not much to negotiate on, so that's something we're going to have to do in person. Sometimes I'll try to knock a little bit off, messaging back and forth, depending on what the demand is for the bike. If you know it's something that's going to get sold quick or it's a really good deal, don't do any negotiating over text because they're just going to respond to somebody else that is like, I can come pick this up tomorrow. So just depends on the listing. But for this guy, it looks like it had been listed for a minute, so we're probably good there. But like I said, there's not much to negotiate on. It's a super clean bike. It looks really nice. So what I would do at this point is send him a message. Just be like, I can come look at this day, or this day. What works best for you? If he gets back, schedules out a date, we're good to go. Then the next thing I do is a day before or, the same day, I'll ask for the VIN before I go ahead and meet him because we got to run a VIN check. So, Carfax. You got to run a VIN check on the bike before buying it. It sucks because it's about $50. It's about $50 to run a VIN check. So, that does suck, but Carfax, where I do my VIN checks, like I said, $50. It will send you everything you need to know about the bike. And you don't want to buy a bike without a title or it has issues with the title, it's been stolen, something crazy like that. It's not worth it. A lot of those really cheap bikes normally have sketchy things going on with the titles too. But if it's a fairly priced bike, you should be fine. Definitely worth $50 though, because like I said, you don't want a bike that has issues with the legal side of things, because when you go to actually sell that bike again, you're just going to be screwed. So try to, definitely run a VIN check before you go look at any bike. All right, and then another thing I would do too, if you're assuming you're new to motorcycles and you're not super sure what the value of that bike is. For me, I already kind of had an idea, so I completely forgot to even mention this. I forget what year it is. Clicked away from it. I think it was 2023. just Google Kelly Blue Book's motorcycle value. It'll come up, and then you can just run through here and pick the model out. Let's see. Typical listing price, $5,000. That's actually pretty close. Sometimes Kelly Blue Books aims on the high side, but that's pretty close to what I would say a 2023 is worth. So that's a good rule of thumb if you don't really know the value of a bike, or I'm sure you can ask AI at this point and it will tell you, if it's a good deal or not. But Kelly Blue Books is a good kind of baseline. What is this bike worth? Like I said, definitely aims toward the high side, but it's just a way to check and make sure you're not getting ripped off. Now, at this point, we're good to go. We ran the VIN, we checked out the bike. You definitely want to ride it, put it through the gears, which if you're completely new to riding, get a buddy, somebody that, knows how to ride. If you don't have anybody to ride, then you're going to have to get a trailer or something, and you won't be able to really test ride the bike. But if it's low mileage, it's probably going to be fine. Like I said, these beginner bikes are super reliable, so there shouldn't be too many issues there. But if you can or know somebody that rides, I would highly recommend having somebody come with you just to test ride it. It's happened to me with a lot of the beginner bikes that I flipped. They'll have a buddy come out just to ride it and make sure everything checks out, make sure it's not a hunk of junk and I'm scamming them, which I would never do. But you never know with people on Marketplace. So good to run it through all the gears and just make sure everything feels right. Transmission feels good. The clutch feels good. Turn signals work, all that good stuff. So if you do have a buddy that rides, highly recommend doing that. Now, other than that, that's basically everything. The only other advice I would say is take your time learning in a parking lot, getting all the fundamental downs, and, just learn how to ride. Don't be overconfident. You're going to get a couple months of experience in. You're going to know how to use a manual, transmission and clutch really well, and think you know how to ride just because you can shift good. That's not the case. Spend lots of time practicing, learning, and you'll be good to go. But other than that, that is all we have today. I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat, and I will be sure to try to respond to all of them. Other than that,